Hello and welcome to this episode of Grant Thornton's In Conversation With podcast. I'm Richard Waite, People and Culture Director at the firm, and I'm really passionate about trainees and early careers recruitment, and it's where I started my career with the firm back in 2010. I'm joined today by Lottie and Adeleke Oyebola, and we're here to talk about how you can make the most of your first few months at the firm. But first of all, let's start with some intros. Lottie, over to you.
I'm a placement student at Grant Thornton. I'm working in the corporate tax team. So I've been here for about 9 months already, got another couple of months left. I go to Manchester Met Uni, so I'll be going back there in September. So yeah, just 1 year, but really enjoying it.
Great, Lucky.
Hi, I'm a graduate here, so I've started just around a year and a half ago, so kind of settled in now. I'm working within the public sector audit team and been loving it here. It's been quite a shift from my last role and yeah, it's been great.
Great. So I think what we're going to talk about today is going to be really important for those who are either thinking of applying to Grant Thornton or who are joining soon, to really get their heads around what they can do to make the most of those first few months in role. We know it's such a big transition from school or university into your first role in a professional environment, and it's a big change. But we'll get into that in a little while. But first, let's start with some easier questions. So have you got 3 words that you would describe your career at Grant Thornton to date? And have you got 3 skills as to why you're great at the job that you do? Lottie.
Yeah, I'm ready to start. I say 3 words to describe like my Grant Thornton experience so far. Definitely challenging, but then enriching on the other side of it. And then finally I'd go with stimulating, being in this workplace. And then 3 skills which make me good at my job. Organisation, definitely. Networking. And I'm in quite a big team, so communication is definitely a big one as well.
Great. Okay.
I think 3 words I would say challenging, I'm going to steal that one. I think rewarding as well. I think the work is great. And I think developing as well. I think definitely developing has really seen a lot of growth since I've joined. And I think 3 things that I would say, or 3 skills I have that I think has helped me do well in the job. I think I'll communicate well. I think honesty, and I also think kind of going off the, I guess, challenging one, but I guess challenging myself to do new things as well.
Great. So let's rewind to your first few weeks at Grant Thornton and making that transition from student life to working life. And Lottie, I guess you've got to transition back when you go back to uni for your final year, and then transition back again when you come back as a graduate. But what was it like in those first few weeks? Kind of what did that transition feel like?
Yeah, I guess I could go first. I think it was quite a shift for sure. I think with university, you're quite used to being just independent. You're responsible for your own day-to-day. You could kind of create your own schedule. I think coming into the workplace, you recognize very quickly that you're working also to other people's time. And so potentially being slow in one area, or potentially not pulling your weight in a way, it doesn't just impact you, it also impacts everyone else. And I think for me, that was the first big transition. I think also Grant Thornton is quite a big company. I think I didn't fully anticipate that when I first joined. And so meeting so many new people from so many different backgrounds, I think it was quite encouraging as well, seeing so many different backgrounds, but I think also quite challenging as well, because there's so many different kinds of people you have to get used to and their different ways of working. But I think it's been great, for sure.
Lottie.
No, I definitely agree. I think at uni you kind of have the free rein to like go to the library at 10 at night and stay there all night if you really want to. And once you start the 9 to 5, it's like your whole work's in the 9 to 5, and like there is some flexibility, like you can start half an hour early, finish half an hour early, but if there's a meeting, you have to be at the meeting. If there's a deadline, you have to get it for the deadline. Like you're working to, like you said, you're working to everyone's day and everyone's deadline, not just your own, which definitely is a transition. So it's not that it takes away the independence, but you're not in control of your schedule anymore. But I think there's definitely benefits to that. You get to finish at the end of the working day. I remember uni, like I never got to switch off. Like you'd have a free evening, you'd be like, well, I guess I'll keep doing my assignment then. Whereas here, it isn't that 9 to 5, but it's definitely not as scary as you originally think.
And I guess I know sometimes when we've got those deadlines or we've got big projects on, or where you're kind of preparing for exams, sometimes it's not always, I guess, in the 9 to 5. Have you got examples of where you've kind of had to knuckle down, put in the work, do those longer hours to get the job done? And how have you made that work, I guess, balancing that with social commitments and things outside of work? Sometimes you've got to make those tough calls, right? Leke?
I think I really experienced this at the start of this year. So I had, I guess, the large bulk of my exams beginning of the year, the first couple of months. I had about 4 or 5 in a 3 or 4 month span. So I was also working at the same time. So on my day-to-day, that typically looked like working 9 to 5. I'll come home at 6:30, eat, and then probably from 7 to 10, I'll start studying again. I've realized that, at least for me, I didn't want to sacrifice my weekends. And so I found the best way was just showing up Mondays to Friday every single day and studying afterwards. I think there's often the idea that once you start exams, you're going to lose your entire social life. I don't think it's necessarily has to be the case. I don't think the firm encourages it either. I think it just requires us to be disciplined and show up every single day. So I think for me, that was probably the hardest part to actually balance. It wasn't necessarily the difficulty of like actual work and exams, but rather just showing up every day and being consistent in that.
And if we've kind of gone back to when you first joined and kind of your reflections on those first few weeks, now that you are where you are, kind of what do you know now that you wish you'd known then?
I think the first thing I would say is, I think I wish I knew that it's okay to ask for help. I think my first couple of weeks, I wanted to make a really good impression.
Yep.
And so rather than going to ask for help, I would try to figure out everything by myself. I wish I knew that people didn't expect me to do that or expect me to know everything at the beginning. I think I put a lot of pressure on myself the first month or so to try to balance all the work, try to learn everything immediately. But if I just asked for help sometimes, it would have not just helped myself, but also helped the team.
Great points. Lottie?
Definitely almost following on, like don't worry if you don't know everything before you join. Everybody definitely doesn't expect you to know. Like when you join, there's going to be training, like training on softwares, like specific training. I had personal tax training, business tax, like they cover everything. And I wish I knew to not worry. Because I remember the first few weeks I was like, but I don't know anything about corporate tax. But it's like you just need the basic outlining, and everyone will train you the rest. So I know I wish I didn't worry too much about the specifics as much.
I think one of the things that I think is special about Grant Thornton is that you join as part of a larger cohort. I guess not so large that you're completely lost in it, but large enough that you've got kind of that big network of people who are all going through the same things at the same time, in your offices, similar experiences. And I guess that building that network starts from before you even join, right? Kind of the pre-joiner experience, then we've got the talent orientation events. Talk to me about how you built your networks with your peer group, even from before you joined.
Yeah, I think for me, probably the biggest contribution was the buddy system that we have at GT. Before joining, this might have been a month or 2 before I joined, my buddy invited me into the office. And so we went out for lunch together. He took me through a tour around the office, introduced me to a couple of people who would, I guess, become my future colleagues. Having a buddy means that no matter what, when you come into the office on your first day, you at least have that comfort of knowing somebody. And I think it really contributes heavily because that's someone that you could go to if you get stuck, even if you don't necessarily, like even if they're not necessarily on your team, there's someone who's been through what you've been through. They've done the exams that you've done. They've worked on the kind of tasks that you've worked on. So that's someone that you could always go to. And I think it just makes the first couple of weeks and months so much easier.
So helpful. Lottie, what about yourself?
Yeah, I was the same. I know the minute I got offered the job, my buddy reached out to me, we had a call, and then I couldn't make the pre-joiner event that they do, so I actually reached out to my buddy and then came here, had like a tour around the office, went for a coffee with a few people in my team, it was nice to just ask like, what clothes should I wear? Where are the toilets? Just things that are really nice to know before you join, especially because I moved to London on my own, so it's just people to know before I came. It's really nice. And because I didn't do talent like some of the grads did as a placement, definitely just I felt like I had to reach out to my team a lot in the start, but it was so beneficial. Like if people went for a coffee, I was like, can I join? If people went for drinks after work, I was like, can I come? Everyone always wants you to go, and just meeting people and making your like colleagues, your friends in a way, but just to have that different like connection. It's really nice, makes the job a lot easier and more comfortable.
Absolutely. And Leke, reflecting on the talent event, which is our national orientation event for our new graduates and school leavers, what was that like? And I guess what did you learn during that kind of those first couple of weeks through talent?
I think talent was amazing. That sometimes I wish that we could have it every year, almost like a reunion of sorts, because you meet so many people from so many different backgrounds as well. I think the beautiful thing about talent is that it's not just the London office. I'm meeting people from Birmingham office, I'm meeting people from the Liverpool office, from all across the country. And it's everyone's going through that same experience. Everyone's got those same nerves. Everyone's wondering, okay, what's the next month of my life going to be like? What's the next 10 years of my life going to be like? And I think that joint experience is really beautiful. I think one thing that I've really appreciated about talent as a whole was, I guess, it's even the small, like mundane things. We met at Grant Thornton before we came in the London office, and we travelled together. And even just that journey from going here to Liverpool and being able to actually bond in that journey, these are still the friends that I go for lunch with every single day since that first time. And it's those small moments that have really kind of formed that relationship. But I think also having that network and knowing that you're part of a wider community, that there's someone from Birmingham that you can still message on Teams today. There's someone from Liverpool you can still message on Teams today. You have the odd occasion where you actually might work with a Birmingham team and you might remember, oh wait, I actually have a friend from that office. It's almost like the start of forming almost like a global network of like colleagues in a way. And I think it really does make you feel involved in the wider scene of what Grant Thornton is.
So part of the talent event, it's lots of in-person work, and I guess for those first few weeks there's lots of in-person working as we kind of help you orientate around the firm. And then we all get to tap into our How We Work framework that is hybrid working, so where we kind of split our time between in-person in the office, on client site, at college, and some working at home. I guess, how have the two of you struck that right balance by kind of being in person when you need to be in person, but also taking some of the advantages of flexible working? Lottie, I'll come to you first.
I know that my team personally recommend you come into the office 2 days a week, so that's what they say for everyone. But as a new joiner, I tried to come in 4 days a week, and I've actually just kept that up the whole year because I prefer it. But I've definitely used the work from home to my advantage as well. If I go home, I can take my laptop, stay a long weekend. It's really good as long as you reach out to people that you are working from home if you need to.
Adeleke, what about you?
I think, funnily enough, I feel like I'm still striking the balance.
Okay.
I think in different, I guess, seasons, I've come in more often than others. So, for example, during our busy season in public sector audit, that would typically be between the end of April until, let's say, the end of June. I would be in maybe 4 days a week because it's a time where we really need to be at our best. The team works together a lot harder, where we just rely on each other a lot more. Whereas I would say at the start of this year, when I was doing both exams and working, I felt like it was much easier to work from home, maybe do that 2 or 3 times a week rather than coming into the office. It just meant it was easier for me to study before work potentially, and then just log on and do my work and then be able to study afterwards. I think Grant Thornton's great in that everyone's quite understanding. Though we have, I guess, a recommended time of maybe 2 or 3 days a week, I think they also are willing to be flexible depending on life circumstances. I know some people have particular days of the week where they might need to pick up kids or they might have other extracurricular things where if they were coming from the office, they might not be able to make it in time. But Grant Thornton are quite, I guess, flexible in that and allowing you to know which days you can work from home and which days you can't. As long as you communicate it with your team and they sign off on it, I think it tends to be perfectly fine.
And I guess it's making those good decisions, isn't it? And using your judgment around what work is best done in person in an office versus actually what work might be better done at home, quiet time, studying for exams, catching up on admin at the end of the week. I guess different work suits different spaces, right? And I guess it's part of the challenge for our new associates and our new trainees is to figure out what those good decisions look like. So I guess listening to those examples that you've provided will be super useful. Thinking about impactful in-person working, talk to me about some of the great things that you've done with your colleagues, either in an office or on a client site, kind of things that have been real highlights of either your placement programme to date, Lottie, or your grad scheme to date, Adeleke.
Highlights. I guess it's a weird thing to say this, but I guess with audit, sometimes the most exciting times in work is when things don't go exactly to plan, because it really challenges you to actually come up with, I guess, new ideas and new ways of going about things. And I think I've enjoyed the moments where I've had the opportunity to engage directly with the client. I've recently had this during our last busy period where during the section which I was given, we've figured out that there was a bit of an issue from our client side in terms of the work they'd given us. And I was trusted by my manager to actually lead the call and discuss with them because I was the one who was handling that area. I think that was a great opportunity, not just from a personal development side, but I think also in terms of actually having that face-to-face interaction with someone who's, I guess, a C-suite or someone who's a head of finance. I think typically at the age of 22, 23, 24, you won't normally get that kind of face-to-face interactions with someone of such a high level. But being able to be given that opportunity, I think it was how would I describe it? I think it was priceless in a way and really beneficial for my own, I guess, development, but also it was just encouraging that my team trusted me to be able to do that.
Lottie?
I know that as a placement we don't do exams, so I've been in the office for the past 9 months like consecutively, so I've tried to really use that to my advantage to get as much client work and as much experience as I can. So I know in like my first few weeks all the grads on my team were out either on talent or doing exams, and then I got talking to someone in my team the day after he offered me to go to a client meeting, so I've stayed on that client for the rest of my year here, but definitely just networking.
I guess we're an organisation that's made up of nearly 6,000 people, right? So those relationships and connections are super important. And can you talk about any other networking touch points that you've had that have been impactful to date? Lottie, we'll start with you.
I've done a few things as a placement, like talking to year 12 and 13 students, things like that. And when I've done that, it's been with other people. So I've always tried to stay in contact with the people I've done it with, and that's just like a small way of networking. Or say the grads in my team have college friends, getting to meet people in different teams, and now I know multiple people across different teams. Like you were saying, people in different offices, you go to message someone and you're like, I actually know someone in their team, so I can do it through them and get to know people. It's definitely just any chance on the first day, talk to everyone. It doesn't matter if they're in your team. You end up seeing everyone in the lifts here, going up and down, you bump into the same faces. And it's really nice sometimes to go for lunch with a different team, network, branch out. And as a placement, you've got the opportunity to come back as a graduate role. So if you want to try other teams, get to know what they're about, just get talking to people. Everyone loves to network.
It's a great point about networking in the lift. I'm going to take that top tip away myself. Leke, what about yourself?
I think similarly, I had the opportunity, I think this was maybe my first or second month here, to volunteer. I think we went to a secondary school and we spoke to them about Grant Thornton. We did a couple of lessons with them about just accounting and business. And in doing that, I was able to meet a lot of people from other departments. I think even now, when I go to the canteen and bump into them, that was almost a year ago, but we still get the chance to just catch up, to how things going, or like how's the day-to-day. This could be a manager from a completely different team, and we still have that kind of bond there.
Leke, I'll come to you for a question because it's about exams. So a big part of the graduate and the school leaver programme is the study for their exams, and it's full on and it can be rigorous and lots of revision that you've already talked about how you manage it. But how do you find that kind of juggling of work and study and clients? It's full on, right, for those first few years until you get professionally qualified. How are you making it work?
How am I making it work? I hope I'm making it work. I think I lean a lot on the fact that I'm part of a cohort. I think the fact that I'm not just doing exams by myself makes it a lot easier. So we may study together after work. We may come into the office on a Saturday and revise together. We may share notes with each other or give advice to each other in terms of how to study. I think also the fact that there's countless of, I don't want to say generations, but almost like generations of people who've done it before you. I might be stuck on a particular exam and I could go to my in-charge who was in my position 2 years ago and they could say, well, when I did the exam, here are some tips that worked for me. I think that has made the actual studying quite easy, or easier, let's say. In terms of actually balancing it, I think you have to be really clear with your team. I think there's the tendency to not want to set a hard deadline and say, well, at 6 o'clock, I need to go study, because you always want to be present at work. But I think for me, what's worked best is letting my team know when I have study or when I have study leave coming up.
I guess the other thing that's a big transition from student life to working life is what to wear, dressing for your diary, whether that looks different, whether you're at college or working from home or in the office or on a client site. I guess, how did you navigate that and figure out what you needed to wear, what maybe you shouldn't wear, and how to dial things up accordingly depending on where you were going? Lottie?
I've definitely adopted the dress for your day kind of policy, but I always, especially in the first few months, like to go more smarter. I'm personally in quite a large team, so I'd never know when the partners or directors are going to be in, and I liked whenever I met someone to just feel comfortable myself, that I was meeting them and making a really good impression. And I think it's also important to remember, even if you're working from home, people will just Teams call you. Definitely more smarter than casual, especially to start with, before you see what your team's like specifically.
Great advice, Leke.
Yeah, I think piggyback off of that, I definitely say it's best to be overdressed than underdressed. I think especially in your first couple months, you don't want to come into a meeting or into a room and feel like everyone else is a lot more smartly dressed than you are. I think over your first couple of weeks, you'll get a better gauge in terms of how everyone else seems to dress, whether it's for a meeting, whether it's for just a normal day. And then you could probably tailor your outfits, I guess, as time goes along. But I think similarly to what Lottie said, when you have a meeting, it's best to match what the client is wearing. If your client is a type of client who typically wears shirt and tie, it might be best to actually wear shirt and tie that day. If they're maybe a more relaxed client, then maybe you might tailor that and adjust to meet, I guess, their own standard.
And I guess one of the things that you've both talked about is the value of the buddy relationship. And I think for lots of new trainees joining the organisation, figuring out what they should wear, what they shouldn't wear is going to be something that they're thinking lots about. Tap into those people who've, like you said, been there, done it before, a bit more experience to help you kind of make the right call. And finally, if you're going back a year or a year and a half to when you first joined, is there anything that either of you would do differently than you did? Lottie?
I think I'd worry less about not knowing anything about my sector specifically. In the first few months, there's a lot of training, like I said before, but there's also a lot of chances before your work picks up to actually research on your own. So I know that every few days I'd just be like, what does this mean? And then actually go into it, so I'd remember it, make my own notes, and then that helped me further along. But I think I was very worried to start with, that I just didn't know everything, but you just don't need to. And just enjoy the first few months while it's a bit more quiet. People will be going out and study, you'll be networking, you'll just be picking up work. You don't need to worry that you don't know everything. Because everybody says it, but a year down the line, you're like, everything just clicked into place at some point and you don't know when, but it really does just click in eventually.
Great. Leke, anything you'd have done differently?
I think I would have got more involved in the actual sector as a whole. I think over the last 6 months, I've realised that the more I've learned about the sector and the team, the more interesting and rewarding the work has been. I think when I first joined, my sole focus was I just need to get the work done. I just want to make a good impression. And I think once I started actually appreciating the work and the value we contribute to, whether it's our clients or whether it's just to society as a whole, it makes the workday more enjoyable because I know why I'm doing what I'm doing. It's not just a task to get done. It's not just a job to make money, but we're actually doing something that's of value and that's actually helping other people. So I think for me, one thing I would have definitely done is just get more involved in that side of things and set my mind and my focus more on just the impact that we're making here.
Great. I think that's a perfect place to leave things. Thank you both so much for joining me and sharing your insights into your first few months at Grant Thornton. I think what you've shared is going to be really, really useful to those who are thinking about applying to a career at Grant Thornton or who are maybe joining very shortly to the firm. So thank you for that. And I really can't wait to see how your careers continue to flourish at the firm. Thank you very much for joining this episode of Grant Thornton's In Conversation With, and I look forward to welcoming you to one of our future episodes very soon.